start this session, our seminar, our monthly seminar. As a matter of fact, we are very happy to have you here. This is our fifth monthly seminar. We are pleased to have Eklind with us today. And we are happy that you are here, gathered here to talk about Iran from past to present. Though it is a very, very long history, but it's amazing. It is very interesting. Lots of events, some events that are very interesting for any historian. And I hope Kent will introduce this long history to us in a short period of time, and also focus on current issues that we have in Iran and surrounding areas. Kent is a lawyer and a sociologist as a matter of fact, his studies, and also he became interested in Iran when he went to Iran at the end of the 90s, if I'm not wrong. 97. And then he tried to gather some information and materials about Iran, read about Iran, and then he found out that there is no book in Swedish about Iranian history. So he worked hard for 8 years. 12 years, I'm sorry. For 12 years to collect data and write this book. That is a very interesting book, and he's a very knowledgeable person about the issue and the matter. And as a matter of fact, I think I don't know Swedish, and I didn't have a chance to read the book. I just tried to find out some other people who have talked about the book, or talked to some people who have written about the book. So this is a very good opportunity for us to have him here and explain a little bit about the book and the interesting events throughout the history. And as I said, more on his interpretations, his findings, and his ideas about Iran, and hopefully give us a perspective about the future of Iran. So I invite him to start his talk, maybe, I don't know, around 50 minutes, 55, 60 minutes, 1 hour. And then we will have the floor for you, and hopefully you will have your comments or questions about the book or about his presentations. Please.
Do you hear me?
Yes.
You hear me well?
Yes.
Thank you. First of all, I think I must say to Professor Haji Youssefi, thank you for inviting me. It was for me an honor and a pleasure. I can just hope I can do anything about it. As Professor Haji Youssefi said, the Iranian history is a quite long history. It maybe is too long for sitting here and talk about it. I'm afraid of that. Anyway, let me begin to ask if you can recognize the picture you see behind me. Some close Iranian friend? No. What a pity. If I say that it's a little a little north of Feskandis, is Kandovan. Yeah. The age of this bridge, I don't know. I know when I saw it the first time, because I have been there twice, that it was a marvelous bridge. I suppose it's must be quite very old. Looking at my own picture, I must say one thing more. Because In this picture, I will give an advice to Iranian friends. Upside here, you see my, do we see that? Yes, thank you. Upside here, there is a new built hotel. Every room is in the cliffs, and going up you have the restaurant for the hotel, and the hotel standard is like Hilton and better. It's magnificent. Don't forget that. I had in my mind before coming here, first I found that I asked myself, you have accepted the invitation because you was proud, and I'm still proud to have the invitation. But I asked myself, my dear Kent, what do you have to say about Iran? The people listening at you are mostly Iranians. Have you anything at all to say? No, I don't think so. So I have to try to do my best, because I have two perspectives here. One of them I called the long-term angel, means going back to the ancient time. And then I have the short-term perspective, is our time. And I'm going to try to explain that in the coming pictures. And in the end, I hope I can close them together. And I have some text from Professor Haji Youssefi, so I think I will succeed on the way. To choose the short term or long term, it's you can do whatever you want of this. This is the long term, as you well can see. As you can see, this figure goes from 2500 until 1200, the Mongols. I expected someone to ask me, why do it end with 1200 and the Mongols? And my answer is, ask the computer program. I couldn't go any further because the space given to me by the computer didn't allow anymore. But what I meant, even if we can go just to 1200, that is that the figure in itself gives us, if we say 2500 to 1200 with simple words, okay, it's much of time. But if we see the figure, it gives us the impression of what this really is about. Some short comments. My wife has a cousin, and his name is Giuseppe Majidzadeh. He is was a professor because he retired like me, live in France for the moment. But he is a professor who was working together with Canadian professors and American professors to dig around Arata, south of Yeroft. And he has written 3 books in 3 big bands about this team. And the interesting thing is that he proposed, and many scientists agree, that between the old Sumer from the beginning and the Mohenjo-Daro at the Indian continent, we have another big civilization, Aratta. The researchers have been searching for Aratta for a long time. That's the reason why I took Aratta on this figure, because I couldn't hold my wife's cousin out of the picture. This first chapter is a mixed chapter, because in the book I try to, I expect the reader to not to be Iranians, Swedish people, and Swedish people don't know anything at all Iran. They never, if you ask them what is Iran, oh. That's why I wrote my book. So in the first chapter I had a mixed view, meaning that I have some geographical notations. You can see I'm talking about Iran in west, Iran the land between, Iran in the east, the Silk Roads and Central Asia. I try in some way to inform the reader what we are talking about. Then I have in the end of this chapter some notes about Iran today. So it's a very broad beginning. And this next picture is not in the book, it's for us today. But it's to explain how an outsider look at Iran. I think I will remind the Iranian listeners that some of us have understand that Iran yesterday maybe was something else than Iran today. Mostly I think no Swedish has some opinion about that, because in Sweden there is just Greece, Rome, Greece, Rome, Greece, Rome, Greece, Rome, Greece, Rome, Greece, until Greece and Rome put you up in your head so it goes out through your ears. That's the problem in Sweden. I have to remind you of that. And that's why I chose to put in this picture in this short information of the book. We are still on the long term, aren't we? I have the opportunity to go to Khuzestan. And it's so much to say about Elam and Khuzestan, so I don't really know what to say. Anyway, you know, it's the old Urartu Empire. Dar an Tusht, eller Dar Dur und Tast. And this is what you know of Iranians, the Shoga Chambil. We call it in Sweden Babel's Tower. It's the old ziggurats, you remember the ziggurats. It's well behaved, but on the contrary, I was disappeared because the government in Iran seems to be quite uninterested of the former history. It reminds me of Ali Shariati. You remember Ali Shariati? Of course. He said, the history before Islam is no history at all. It's just digging in the ground. And of course, maybe. But I think for an outsider, even the history before that has some interest. See, I have made some quotations here. Yes, in the surroundings here, you know very well that we find Susa, the summer palace for Xerxes, and you remember that according to the Bible, Xerxes was married with Esther. Yeah. I've been there and taking pictures, and it's a story of sorrow. Because the Frenchmen and the Brits have taken everything. It's just grounds, 2 decimeters over. It's one thing still is there, I suppose you remember, it's the bull, the från for Xerxes. It's sorrowing. And then you have Haft-Tappe. It's another big area. It's expected to be 6 to 7 ziggurats like this, 6 to 7. When I was there, they was building a motorway just over all the area. So it is. Now we will see if I can continue, because I see that the next picture throws back to our time. And I think it can be good to mix the talking, can't it? The next map I have worked very hard with, I can assure you. It took me hours after hours after hours with a blind map to fix this, and I'm satisfied. I'm satisfied of the simple reason that it gives us the impression of the region we today are talking very much about, Middle East, aren't we? And that's an area where the day's policy is developing in very fast. For this day, today we can just be mentioning Syria. But we don't need to say anymore, because there we have Iraq, we have Saudi Arabia, we have the Emirate, we have Afghanistan, we have Pakistan, on and so on. The point for me is to tell the Swedish listener, not you, the Swedish listener, here is Iran. That's my point. It's no point for you, but you must understand I have a Swedish audience, and they don't know. But if they see the map, they can understand. They can maybe better understand the political situation today, why and how. From that point of view, I came to my short term. Can you read this text on the back? It's possible to see? It's too small? It's a little small. You can't. No, you can't. Let me try, see what we can do here. We take it up. Is that better?
Yes.
Thank you. This is a way for me to explain the time I wrote the book. You see, I was in Iran the first time 1997. I was there in August. Muhammad Shatami was inaugurated that month. And for me, as a foreigner, I found Iran to be a very joyful and happy society. all people was happy and kindly. They are still. But what I try to say is it was a little change when times passed. Shatami opened up with the dialogue among civilizations. We remember that at that time we have Madeleine Albright as foreign minister in USA. And it looks that it could be some openings. But I hope you don't have missed that Mr. Obama has called Hassan Rouhani. I see someone nodding. So we have to see. That's another question. Anyway, he opened up 1998 the dialogue among civilizations, and it was really an opening with thought all around the world, and I suppose even inside Iran. But then it came things unexpected, and it's no secret for anyone that we have political parties even in Sweden fighting each other. So that's nothing new. And we have in Sweden a right wing and a left wing. And I belong to the living people who can see this without religion. Someone just can see it as a question of religion. For me, this clash between social groups is anywhere, from different points of view. If there is one religion there and one there, we still have this clash between groups. So, I'm not interested in religion. I have a chapter of Shia here, but that's another question. Because we are looking at the period from 97 until now, aren't we? And we have the 99 student opposition, and you see on the text also, I'm quoting here. I must say I'm sorry I'm mentioning Hassan Rouhani. I like this guy. But anyway, I am a lawyer. I just mentioned it. The problem in itself, as you know better than me, but it was going deeper. So the same year, a little later, we have the Karbashi affair. That was some sort of trial for misconduct in office. And Shatami sent Abdullah Nouri to save him. It looks like it was a mistake, because you know better than me what was happening to Nouri. And let us look at it with it meant that the Shatami office was weakening. It was getting weaker and weaker. And then we have a new party. It come from the darkness. It was Abadjadan. You can it better than me. Anyway, what's happening was that they succeeded in the local elections. So Mahmoud Ahmadinejad became mayor in Tehran. And it's in Tehran like in Moscow. Because if you are mayor in Moscow or mayor in Tehran, you are very close to be mayor some other's place. And 2005, we remember so well what's happening. I set 2004 in somewhere in August, October at the shores at the Caspian Sea. And I sat there talking with a group of students. I'm an old man, they was young men. And there was 10 to 12, and we talk politics. And they asked me questions and so on. And I asked them. And I remember, I didn't understand that at that time, but they was talking about the caudal movement, and my brain was too small for that at that time. But what I remember so well is, and what I want to say to you, that it was first after the elections, reading the Iranian newspapers, I became aware of Rafsanjani's destiny at that time. And it's of course interesting, because Rafsanjani, in my new book, I quoting Iranian papers, they're calling him the bookmark of the revolution. But the last elections, you quite well know what's happening. But I have to mention this because these young students, they was only talking about Rafsanjani. They expected Rafsanjani to win the election, and I was a foreigner, so I listened, yes, Rafsanjani, yes. But he didn't. From 2006, we have a new problem coming up. The nuclear question. And you have to excuse me, but I'm not going to talk about that. You see, I am a hard man. If you know something of protons and cylinders and percentual grade of upgrading, you can talk about nuclear questions. But if you don't know anything about that, don't talk about it. Read the papers. It's to simplify. I have opinions, but all have opinions, haven't they?
Yeah.
Yes. So we came to the 2009 elections. Oh, sorry. And it happens to be, so I was there 2008. I was there in the end of 2008, no, in the beginning. Anyway, 2008 was some sort of blowing up the elections. When I came home, I had to read the papers as all people outside Iran. I learned when I tried to see what I'm going to say today, I learned that I haven't understood that, but now I have. The Green Movement, the term Green Movement, has to be connected to 2009. There is a mistake to talk about reformists and Green Movement. But this is for more deep men than me. But that is anyway not the same, not really the same. yes, then we, and there you see, we read, I finished my book. And it was necessary for me to show this picture because I have asked myself to what extent it affected me, the happenings in Iran, while I wrote the book. And I have found the explanation. For now we are leaving this short term and going to the long term. But the point is that I lost the thread, so we go further. I lost the thread. And we are passing over to the long term. And now we are following something that someone said before I was the speaker, and that's the truth. Why should I talk about the long term? Because an Iranian boy or girl going in the 3rd class in the ground school already know it. So why should I talk about that? Why should I talk about anything all of you know? 100 times more than me. I can't answer that question, but I'm going to do it. You have to excuse me. Do you that? I was invited to talk my book, so I must do it. In chapter 2, I'm talking of the myth, the legions, and the migrations affecting Iran in ancient time. I'm going quickly now. Be glad for that. For a foreigner, it's impossible, excuse me, to pass Zarathustra. For some of us it became a god even here, in some way. I will quote the Swedish text because some of you are maybe not been in Sweden long enough to know how he has affected Swedish European thinking. So I quote the text here. The Iranian prophet Zarathustra, Zoroaster, has in our time was named through Richard Strauss' symphonic dict, also sprach Zarathustra, it's a symphony. He is a leitmotiv in a picture movie of Stanley Kubrick. We have a Swedish author, his name was Carl Jonas Love Almqvist. He wrote a book, Ormus and Ahriman, is the good and the evils. And we have Jean-Philippe Rameau, he made an opera, Zoroastre. And we have Mozart, there we find Sarastro in the Sober Flight. And we have suddenly even Nietzsche, and he's also sprach Zarathustra. And often forgotten, Gustav Mahler, in his text to the solo, in his third part of his, the second part of his 3rd symphony, has a text pictured from this, O Mensch. He took from Nietzsche, sorry. So this man has influenced not only Iran in ancient time. He has been living further, and you know, I take it up in my book. They was going to Bombay, as you well know, and so on. They was ousted out when the Islam movement throw over Iran and so on. Going fast, we came to chapter 3. And I'm just quoting a little short that it's immensely big parts of the Iranian story hidden in this chapter. You have the Ashanimids, you have the Persian and the Greek wars, you have, I say, the last Ashanimids, that when the was going down. You have the fire temple. Then you have Alexander the Great, followed by the Seleucids. They tried to Hellenize Iran. Partly succeeded, partly the Iranians say, thank you, but no more. You have the Arsacids, the Parthian dynasty, and if I have so read of all my life, have to read about Roman victories. I had to have a note of the Battle of Cara. You know what's happened there? Oh no. Crassus